Hi, this is Regina White Favors with Favors Film Analysis. So I want to extend the strategy case study for reviewing The Town. This is more or less a critical thinking opportunity. And I want to look at assessing conflict with the narrative, conflict with the characters, the way that robbery cinema is depicted. So this will give us an opportunity to think about how the director, Ben Affleck, presents conflict, how he acts within the narrative as a main character named Doug, and his relationship with James, as well as the other characters. And this will also just gives us an understanding, an opportunity to reach an understanding about just the presentation of heist movies, the presentation of robbery cinema. So this is Favors Film Analysis, assessing conflict in the town, which showed in theaters 2010. And you can visit www.favorsfilmanalysis.com for more access to critiques and reviews. All right, this presentation is subject to fair use. So now Chris is in a hospital. She has some drugs and alcohol in her with the child with her, and Agent Frawley confronts her because he gets a call about her being in a wreck and being in the hospital, and he's trying to figure out what's going on with her. What do you want to tell me? And Chris makes a very interesting comment. She says, "Why am I always the one getting used? Why am I always the one being used?" Remember, Chris is a drug mule, or sort of like the interpretation of that. So she's being used by Fergie. She's being used by her brother. Even Doug says, "Why are you so concerned about Chris? All you care about is playing Xbox and smoking drugs or something like that. And now you're so concerned about Chris because we don't see a relationship with Chris and her brother James. We don't see them talking. We don't see them in the house together. Everyone is at the barbecue. That doesn't necessarily mean that Chris is having a relationship with her brother. Like a brother to sister, sister to brother relationship. So when she says, "Why am I always the one being used?" we have to assume that her brother is using her just as much as Fergie is using her, just as much as James is using her. You got three men at least who uses her. After the first bank, after the first bank robbery, when they're all in a bar and the four men are sitting at the table, and Dez, well, not three men first, and then Doug comes in, and then Dez says that Chris is over there. Chris was sitting over there. It's the beginning, the lure. Um, I believe that Dez is the one who actually likes Chris, but Chris can't see him because Chris works. I mean, because Dez works. And I believe he's the one. He's the one, I believe, who notices Chris. Doug doesn't care anything about Chris, but she wants to go with a person who's going to use her. Dez, I believe, actually does care about Chris because he's the one who acknowledges her. And so there is no conversation between Chris and Chris and Albert McGlone, or Chris and her own brother. You don't even see James picking up Cheyenne, her daughter. All you see is the conflict relationship that she has with Doug, one at the beginning and one towards the end of the film. So she said, why am I the only one? Why am I always the only one being used?" So Agent Frawley here is giving her a chance to do right, a chance to be a better person, a chance to tell them what's going on. Because the implication is if she doesn't do what she needs to do in this situation, she's going to lose her daughter. He even makes a point about that, and she says, don't talk about my daughter, because he knows that she, in some form or fashion, is complicit in what's going on. And that's why I believe it is here where she tells them what's what happened, what's going on, about the ballpark. But her saying, Chris saying, "Why am I always the one being used?" Uh, doesn't allow for her to take agency on herself. That she uses herself in order for herself to be used just as much as the people around her use her. All right, this is the end of the presentation. So if you want to listen to other film analysis, just visit www.favorsfilmanalysis.com. Thank you very much for listening.